Welcome back to the Birdhouse Dynasty Show, Champions Edition. That's right. We are welcoming you all, champions or not, to dissect what went on in the 2024 regular season so that you can take it into your off season, use it for making moves and heading into the 2025 season. Now I have to take off my son's coolest hat in the world because though I will root for the Powder Blues in the AFC, my heart still belongs. Yes, and thank God, hopefully, we will not be wearing these beautiful creamsicles in the postseason this year. As long as that's right, Tampa wins this Sunday. But regardless, that doesn't matter to y'all because you just want to hear about fantasy champions. That's right. Fantasy champions and how we got it done. Right. So we're going to jump through league to league, go over some of the similarities, maybe the differences based on the different types of leagues that I play in. And of course, I wasn't able to win them all, but I was in 12 of 13 semifinals in money leagues, and I advanced to 5 championship games, winning 3 of those. So I'll go over my moves, not every single detail, but the major moves that happened, as well as some of the other moves that my competitors made that helped them to claim championships in leagues that I wanted them, but wasn't able to get them done. So I'm going to give credit where credit is due. That's right, because the only way to get better is to learn from our mistakes so we don't make them again, right? I've been playing this long enough where the only time I get upset now is when I make a mistake that I've made in the past and let it happen again. So learn from your mistakes. Takeaway number 1. All right. So let's get right into some of my leagues. We're going to start off with 12-team Superflex Start 9, my Dynasty Land League, the one that started it all 5 years ago. And I took first in it 2 years ago, second place last year, and then took third this year, unfortunately. So hold on one second. There we go. Something was annoying me with the Baker jersey. Whatever. Now you got Mike, right? Big Mike, right there. Yes, who will set a record this Sunday when he gets to 1,000 yards for the 11th straight season. Baker's going to make sure it happens. All right. Now, for all of you who were Baker owners this year, you definitely know you reaped the rewards. And yes, they were aplenty. And in my Dynasty Land League, the champ, NLS 2K Mark, he traded for Baker last year and gave up a first for him, which we all pretty much knew was going to be a late first. But at the time Baker was having success last year, but it was all seen as sort of a mirage from the Dave Canales offense, and it was seen as something that couldn't be replicated, couldn't be done again. Baker was coming off of his terrible experience in Cleveland and rolled into Carolina and out of Carolina, and then had a little hiatus in LA for the Rams, um, and then came to Tampa on a $4 million prove it deal. And prove it he did. And then he was greatly rewarded with a 3-year $100 million deal by the Bucks. And then he just shattered all expectations this year, helping lead NLS 2K to the championship. I will bring up his roster for you right here. There is Baker right on top, dropping 34.5 points on his opponent, Ramzak, in the championship game. Now you can see NLS 2K built this, and he built this from the ground up. Like he had, trying to think, I don't think any of these guys are ones that, and I know that he had Saquon. I don't know that Saquon was his originally. Let me look here. Can't bring up the history on the laptop here, unfortunately. Oh, there we go. Transaction history. Okay. So he initially took him in the 2020 startup and at the 104, and then traded him away for Dalvin Cook, then got him back along with Debo for 2 firsts and a second. So this took some maneuvering to get Saquon back, but it definitely paid off. And this is a theme that we're going to touch on throughout this episode today, and that is veteran running backs changing teams. Now, in the past, this had been sort of a taboo to stay away from veterans switching teams at the running back position. They were used up on their first contract by their original team, and nobody wanted them, so they got paid less, and now nobody wants them because they're going to fall apart. That has been the theme for veteran running backs coming into this 2024 season of ours. But with Saquon running for 2,000 yards, Derrick Henry smashing things in Baltimore, Josh Jacobs killing it in Green Bay, they all have proven, not just those, but Tony Pollard in Tennessee, Aaron Jones in Minnesota, and Joe Mixon down in Houston. All of these guys, all of them, almost all of them from the same 2017 draft, but some of them, I mean, they're all on their second contracts now. They all just obliterated that thought process that going out and acquiring a running back on their second contract was bad news. Now, what does that mean going forward into the 2025 season? Well, for one, there aren't going to be as many superstar running backs on the market this offseason. Okay. I mean, unless the Packers inexplicably cut Josh Jacobs after the first year of their team-friendly deal that they worked out with him, which is a 4-year deal, but basically 4 separate 1-year contracts, which the Packers are sure to bring Jacobs back for his second season of that contract. But after Jacobs' success and Henry's and Saquon's and Mixon's and Pollard's and Aaron Jones, all of these guys having success. You go back a year earlier, Christian McCaffrey being traded to the Niners and having success. Okay, that one was more of just the perfect fit in a running back who still had some tread on his tires. I mean, all of these dudes are potential, not all of them, but many of them are potential Hall of Famers. And Henry, go back to McCaffrey, now Saquon, Um, so I don't see Josh Jacobs going to the Hall of Fame. He would have to have just a monster 4 seasons in Green Bay for that to happen, along with a Super Bowl title, probably. But uh, regardless, the point remains that if they are superstar talent, they can produce anywhere. Okay. You give them a good offensive line and they will produce. You give them a great offensive line and they will have legendary seasons such as Saquon's. All right. Now, NLS 2K not only had these players that you see right here, but as we scroll on down, you can see you had Jefferson, Keenan Allen was a cheap pickup. Jake Ferguson did nothing, but he drafted Malik Neighbors, drafted Bijan Robinson the year before, traded for Jared Goff. All right. Lots of moves here that NLS 2K made and paid off this season. So the key for him was being active and buying at the right time. Sometimes that meant buying on the upswing. A lot of people's thoughts in Dynasty are simply buy low, sell high, buy low, sell high. Well, the truth is that winning moves, buying low and selling high can get you into the playoffs, but buying high at the right time is what wins championships. Okay. If you bought Jonathan Taylor right before the playoffs this year, and you luckily didn't have to play him in the first round of the playoffs, but had him in the semifinals and finals, that probably helped you win. If you bought, like I said, Baker Mayfield at any point in this past year, you were essentially buying high on Baker Mayfield because he was at his highest value that he had been since his rookie season. They didn't even have keep trade cut back then. So I don't know what his value was at, but he had a monster rookie season. Um, he paid the full 101 freight price for Bijan Robinson. He Actually, I shouldn't say that now that I remember. This was the only league where Bijan went 102 for me. CJ Stroud actually went at the 101, which everybody laughed at when he got taken. But after last season, 1-6 cert in this league, who happens to have CJ Stroud still, and had to weather the storm of this season with Stroud's underperformance. Yes, he definitely lost out on CJ Stroud's value this year. Now, I don't know that I would have, if I was in his shoes and I had been bold enough to take CJ Stroud at the 101, then had a great season. I don't think I would have been unloading him right away. Now, would that have been the right move? Looking back now, absolutely, because you could have traded him for a few firsts, 2 to 3 firsts at some points in this past off season, and now bought him back right now for a first and a second. I mean, Stroud has definitely disappointed. Now, I don't think that he's going to have a terrible career by any stretch, but at the same time, he's sort of dropped into the middling mediocre tier of quarterbacks because he doesn't run. Okay. You think of like the Tuas and the Kirk Cousins and Jared Goffs in that realm now, is where CJ Stroud is. Could he have a couple of top 5 performances in his career? Maybe. Not likely, but maybe. Top 10 performances, probably more likely. But again, at the quarterback position, as we all kind of know now, the running quarterbacks are the cheat code in fantasy. And so if you can acquire them, go after them whenever knock on the doors whenever they're, think of Anthony Richardson this year when he got benched. That was turned out to be a good time to buy in. Okay. Because inexplicably they changed their minds and said that he wasn't benched for the whole season, but because Flacco wasn't playing well. So they brought Anthony Richardson back in, and whoever traded back for him ended up, it paid off nicely. Now I don't know where A Rich is going to go from here going forward in the next couple of seasons, but we'll see. He's definitely in better shape than he was around weeks 9 or 10. I'll say that. Is he somebody that I'm actively out trying to acquire right now? No, but is he somebody that I think a little more highly of than I had a couple months ago? Yeah, probably. Okay, so we'll move on to the next league. Congratulations again to Mark. That was a lot of work for him that was involved in getting this team to where it's at right now. And props to him for winning Dynasty Land. It's a tough league. It's the one I cherish probably the most because it was the first league that brought me back into Dynasty. And so, yeah, congratulations to Mark. Now to 3143. And this league, I had a good season. Let's see, had the top seed, lost in the semifinals, and took third place. Um, we had I believe it was what was it here? The 4 seed taking on no, it was the 5 seed. Yeah. 5 seed taking on the 6 seed in the championship. Crazy stuff. I know. 5 seed taking on the 6 seed championship here. And that was the WC's underachievers, Steve beating Brandon, the Fantasy Reaper, here in the championship. Now, take a look at the teams here, and WC's underachievers drafted Jaden Daniels, had Bijan, had Jonathan Taylor, Terry McLaurin, who didn't do a thing in the championship game, but definitely JMO paid off. And there's Patrick Mahomes down there, who he paid a pretty penny for in the offseason. So Patty Mahomes, not a strong season all around, but when it mattered most in the last couple of weeks in fantasy playoffs, he definitely showed up, as did Jonathan Taylor, who struggled most of the season. But like I said, if you went out and acquired him right before the playoffs, definitely paid off for him. Now, I don't think that Steve actually made any crazy moves right before the postseason in this one. He kind of just rolled with what he had. He did not have an overly dominant team, so that's why he probably didn't make those moves, because he was feeling that he was maybe a year away and he was just being patient. But hey, sometimes luck plays out in your favor, and in his case, it totally did. I'm gonna look back here. I can't remember in this league if he beat me or if the Reaper beat me. There we go. Week 16. Yes. Was the Reaper that beat me. Yes. He smoked me by 50. And that was because pretty much everybody on his team just showed up. James Cook, Jefferson, Achan, Gibbs, Gino even came to the party. So yeah, it was a rough week for me, that semifinal game. Destroyed my hopes of being the top seed and taking home the crown. I had Saquon, was riding him most of the season. But anyway, back to WC's underachievers, and what we can learn from him is that sometimes you don't have to make that move. And if you feel like this is important, because if you feel that you're a year away, right, and you can just feel it that you're a year away, don't try to force a championship. Trying to force the championship is what ends up setting you back. Okay. If you look at your squad and don't feel that it's one of the top 3 or 4 teams, it's usually not the right time to make that extra move where you give up a good first round pick or multiple firsts, right? Just just let the playoffs play out, because there's so much variance that goes on. Some people refer to it as luck. I know I said luck, but you know, it's variance is what it is. And you got guys like he has Jamison Williams on his team. He's somebody who can perform like a number one wide receiver for a couple weeks in a row. All right. I'm not saying JMO's going to be a top 10 wide receiver next year, but he can be a top 25 wide receiver for sure. And for stretches there, he's going to look like an absolute monster. Okay. He What he did came at Amon Ra's expense for sure, as Amon Ra didn't have a strong championship week. But the key here is that Steve just was patient and let things fall as they may. And with the right matchups, he was able to get to the championship game. And then in the championship week, he outplayed his opponent. I mean, I won a league last year as the 7 seed, and that was maybe I was the 6 seed. I don't know, but it was the first year of the league. I had garbage at quarterback because they were all hurt. And somehow I rolled into the championship and pulled it out. So those are the kinds of things that happen in fantasy. The key is to not destroy your value in draft capital on a squad that isn't ready, isn't championship ready. Okay. Because sometimes you can still, if you just get a seat at the table, you can pull it out. All it is a 1 week battle, right? Here we go 13 weeks and play our asses off, 14 weeks, sorry, and play our asses off to get that number 1 seed, or at least get the bye as a number 2 seed in some leagues. But then really it just comes down to one week. And in 1 week, we all know anybody could underperform. Anybody could get anybody could get injured on the first drive. So that's where the fun in this game comes in, because it's not all just wrapped up and given to you. I'll show you another team that I have that coasted through the year as the top team. I had over 2,500 points scored. Next best team was at 2,100 points. And sure as shit, I lost in the semis and then lost in the third place game. I took 4th place in a league that I completely smoked all season long. But again, sometimes Matthew Stafford happens and sometimes he doesn't. So, yeah, that's my little jab at Matthew Stafford if you didn't catch it. But anyway, congratulations to Steve. It was a great lesson in just being patient and pulling it off. I give you the credit for being patient and sticking to it and winning 31-43. All right. Next up, we have the Bottom Line League. Now, this is with a few buddies of mine, as well as some people down in Houston and Louisiana. And in this league, Prestige Worldwide was able to go back to back. And this was a great victory. We were the 3 seed in this one, 2 seed. We were the 2 seed. Yes. I co-managed this one with Fantasy Godzilla. And this one, Patty Mahomes came through. Now, this league, we have a pretty solid starting lineup. Some of you might think gross, but with Jefferson, Chase, Mahomes, you can see that lineup on the left there. We added McLaurin for Braylon Allen in a second midway through the season, um, as we saw the success of McLaurin. Sometimes those are the little moves that help you win. Now, McLaurin obviously didn't help us win in week 17, but he did help us get there as the season went on. We had a couple of injuries. DK got injured. Jefferson had that injury. Chase was banged up a little. So McLaurin got us through those days and helped us get that 2 seed and then win it all eventually. Now you'll see Bijan on this team. If I bring it back up again, Bijan, some that we drafted before last season and at the 101, made a few other moves. We did draft JSN and he was sitting on our bench at the beginning of the year, but obviously as the season wore on, he took over more of a 1A role with Seattle, so he definitely paid off. Kelsey, we kind of just held strong with. We also have Pitts on this team, who obviously rode the pine most of the year here, because he's simply just somebody that, you know, okay, and nobody really wants him, right? So there's in that case, you can either cut your losses or you can just hang tight. And with Pitts, we've felt that he's basically just somebody that we're just going to hang tight with. Couldn't get more than a second rounder for him anyway, but he has premium talent. And as you see with Saquon, what he's doing in Philly, if you get a premier talent and they get in the right situation, remember, Kyle Pitts is only what, 23 years old. So he's got a long way to go yet, right? And you look at guys like Jonnu Smith and Evan Engram, who have been able to revitalize their careers, getting in the right situation. You know, Kyle Pitts' rookie deal will be up here soon, and who knows that if he'll be in Atlanta or he'll go somewhere else where he will actually thrive, or who knows if Michael Penix will make him something that we've all hoped. He did throw to Pitts on 4th down when they needed the touchdown, right? Trusted him there, fired it in there. So Penix could be somebody that revitalizes Kyle Pitts' career here. Okay. But anyway, enough about Kyle Pitts. Back to championship building and how it was done. We acquired Amon-Ra in this league. How did we get him? That was a deal. Let me see here. Yes, late last season, it was week 13, I believe, and we were battling King Dong for the 2 seed, and he was having trouble with his starting lineup, and we had some older veterans in Kamara, who was tearing it up, and Ridley as well. And we caught lightning in a bottle here because obviously the value is on the Amon-Ra side, but you know, when guys get desperate, that's why it doesn't hurt to kick the tires, because King Dong's not a moron by any stretch. He's been playing fantasy long enough. He knows what's going on. He had another good year this year, even with a move like this. King Dong was at the 3 or 4 seed. So sometimes you just have to read your opponents. We took a gamble on it for the future, buying Amon-Ra here. And obviously it's worked out because we've won the last two championships here. Now, Amon-Ra wasn't amazing in week 17, as we said. JMO kind of stole the show, but there he is, old reliable. We say that he didn't steal the show, but dude still put up 20 points. I mean, he had 19 in the semifinals. So what you can't complain about that. I mean, he had his big game in the week that we didn't need it when we were on a bye, but just goes to show that Amon-Ra is probably the most underrated of the elite receivers, even ahead of Puka. Puka gets more credit right now because he's the not flashier, but the newer of the underrated receivers in the elite tier. Both of these guys, Amon-Ra and Puka, are so similar in regards to them being undervalued simply because of where they were drafted. Amon-Ra in the 4th round, Puka in the 5th round. So even though they're putting up numbers consistently on a week-to-week basis, I mean, if you want to talk consistency, it's hard to beat Amon-Ra and Puka and their consistency. Yet nobody sees them like Jamar Chase or Jefferson or now Malik Neighbors, right? And Lad McConkey is simply he could possibly be that next guy coming into that mold. Now he wasn't drafted in the later rounds. McConkey was at least taken, I remember, end of the 1st round, but he's not as flashy as Neighbors or Brian Thomas Jr. Okay, I don't want to say Marv's flashy. Marv was an exciting prospect, super exciting, and I still love him as prospect. And going forward, same with Marv. But again, these are the diamonds in the roughs you have to find and then hang on to if you want to continue to succeed in Dynasty. These are the cornerstones of a team. Like having Amon-Ra just stabilizes the wide receiver room as a whole. Now, Justin Jefferson, of course, same thing. He didn't have as flashy of a season as Chase, but as you can see here, Jefferson put up a solid 17 for us that week. Now, I mean, he could have had more. He had a miraculous one-handed grab that was called back because of a penalty. So, obviously Jefferson is on this team here. He was on NLS 2K's championship squad over in Dynasty Land. So Jefferson, no doubt, is a champion for years to come as well in many Dynasty leagues. All right. Next up, we're going to move on to my Turtle League. And in the Turtle League, I was able to. There we go. I was able to pull off the 101 in this league. I was not a contender. This is a squad that I had, the one that I mentioned, miraculously won the league as the 6th seed in the playoffs last year. This year, put it this way, my team was made up of all older veterans, and a couple of guys really hit in Brandon Ayuk. But I had Keenan Allen, Mike Evans, James Conner, all of these, I had all of the bottom of the barrel of the producing veterans, like this year's Terry McLaurin type, right? I had all of those dudes last year. And so I waited the whole off season and wanted to see how things turned out. And after week 1, losing to the median and Brandon Ayuk not being back yet, and definitely worried about his his prospects for this season, feeling that possibly 2023 had been his career year. I just looked at this squad and was like, you know, this is not happening this year. And so I started selling off. And as guys scored touchdowns, I tried to sell them the next week. And it was simple as that. And I ended up with the 101. I went 0-28, got the 101, and now I'm on my way to a solid rebuild going into the 2025 season. And we'll see where that takes me next year. But as far as the championship in this league, I don't want to derail from the importance of the championship matchup here. The who ended up winning this one? Yes, NLS 2K again. Mad props for winning both of these leagues. Now, Jahmyr Gibbs was an anchor on this squad. He has CT Higgins there, and Bijan once again. So, as much as Bijan wasn't flashy this year, Bijan was there on a lot of championship teams. And so we may not have seen Bijan be Saquon-esque yet. And I say yet because if you actually watch some Atlanta Falcons games, you'll see it here and there in bits and pieces. You'll see Bijan making these one-handed grabs or one-hand tip passes to himself where he picks up 7 yards, but you can see where he's just so close to blowing it all the way. And so we've only seen 2 seasons of him so far. So looking forward to year 3. This could be the year of Bijan. It's year 3. So congrats again to Mark for winning the Turtle League as well as Dynasty Land. He had one hell of a playoff run this year in both of those leagues. So next up, we had the Mojo League, and this one I had been the 1 seed. So this one fell short of that. I took on the 2 seed in the title game. And let's bring it up here for you. Here's the Mojo League. And this is year 2 in Mojo. And congrats to the Hock and Ball Trophy Club. That's Wisconsin. Sam, proud of you. Sam's only 2nd year playing Dynasty, and he took a squad. Very nice squad here, mind you. Here's the championship matchup. So as you can see there, he has Burrow and Taylor, a couple of stalwarts in championship roster lineups. Amir Abdullah came through nicely for him. He's got Chase there. Downs didn't do anything, but yeah, you can see those defensive matchups were stellar as well. But up top, Joe Burrow pulled it off. Now, it doesn't hurt when your opponent only scores 129 points. As you can see there, I literally had only Mike Evans and Jahmyr Gibbs in the 20s for me. My quarterbacks were combined for 23 points there between Penix and Stafford. This is a squad where I had Jalen Hurts. And so obviously that was a detriment to my championship aspirations, having Hurts out for the championship game. But regardless, if Hurts had put up 40 instead of Penix's 13, I wouldn't have won. I mean, he would have had to put up 41 more points. He would have had to put up 55 points for me to have pulled it out if Hurts had played. So very unlikely. But Joe Burrow showed up, and Mr. Burrow is simply a championship winner. I go back to his 2nd season when Chase came into the league, and I just, smashed in the championship week. And you can see here, this was another Burrow Chase championship team. And it's not the only one that you'll see as we go through these leagues. So if you can get your hands on the Burrow Chase tandem, by all means, go for it, because these guys know how to put up fantasy numbers. And with a very questionable defense that the Bengals have, I don't see anything changing going forward in the next year. Whether Higgins is back or not, you're still going to have Chase there getting the monster share of targets. And so, yeah, not much more else to be said there. Congratulations to Sam. All right. Next up, we're going to hit up a little redraft, and that would be my Dallas Palace 14-team league. I took third in this one. Sorry, no, fourth. I lost in the third place game. But the champ was the People's Champs. And congratulations to Aaron for winning Dallas Palace yet again. I believe this is his third title. We've been doing this league for about 11 years, and I believe Aaron now has the most championships in this league. Now, this is just a single quarterback league. So he was riding Jordan Love. But you can see here, backbone to this team was Gibbs, Henry, Cloran, Brian Thomas Jr. Laporta was obviously disappointing most of the season, but once it came money time, look at Laporta's stats when it mattered most. In the playoffs, weeks 15, 16, and 17, he put up 21, 14, and 18 for his owners. And so Laporta was huge down the stretch. Like I said, obviously Brian Thomas was putting up numbers all year, and McLaurin, and then Henry and Gibbs as well. Now, he was able to fend off Frosties, who had the top seed on the backbone of Burrow and Chase. Devon Achane and Mixon, obviously disappointed championship week here for Frosties. But hey, sometimes that happens. JSN, Kittle, Jonnu Smith also. So you can see Frosty's had quite a good squad this year. A nice mix of solid, dependable talent in Burrow and Chase, and then Mixon, and then your Jonnu Smiths, and who did he have? He had Jonnu and one other guy that kind of surprised this year. They're JSN and Shakir as well. So I don't want to say JSN surprised, but he stepped up his game to where we all hoped he would have been stepping up his game to it during his rookie season. But anyway, back to the People's Champs. Congratulations, Aaron, and a job well done in that title. All right. Next up, we have Crackhead League, and the Crackhead League is one of my favorite drafts. This one goes back to Super Bowl night. We draft this league Super Bowl night. That's right. It's a redraft, drafted months before even the NFL draft goes on. So this one includes rookies. And so you're picking just 15 players. A normal, it's not standard, but it's a shallow league. Now, we did add and make this one super flex this year to make it a little more interesting. But you can see the championship here went to Brandon. And this was a tight matchup. Came right down to the end, and the Lions defense here squeaked it out for him, scoring 7 points on the last, and it actually came down to the missed extra point by Moody If he had made that extra point, the Lions would have given up 35 points and gotten him -3 points, and he would have lost by just under a point. It would have been like 0.75 that we would have lost to. So it literally came down to that missed extra point costing Kelsey the championship here. Now, if we look at Brandon's roster here, you can see Saquon obviously carried him most of the season, and Lamar. Not a whole lot going on other than Baker and Ladd. So he really was carried by 4 guys in this championship game. But if you take any team that had Lamar and Baker, guarantee that they had success in the playoffs this year. For Kelsey's side, the other side that was so close to winning it, she's got Bo Nix there, Jonathan Taylor, and Jacobs, Puka, and Sam Darnold there. So no surprise that she was in the championship game either with this roster. All right. Next up, we have our Extreme Redraft League. And so this one's a super flex as well. Start 10. This was first year doing this league. Now this league has crazy bonuses, hence the high scores. This wasn't out of the realm. Scoring over 300 points was not out of the realm of happening on a consistent basis in this league. So you see there, Purdy put up 45, Lamar 39 for me, Henry 36. But the championship matchup here in this league, I was in the third place game there. Championship matchup was right here, and Frosties versus the Fantasy Reaper, and Frosties in this one had Saquon, Josh Allen, and Zach Ertz, and T. Higgins, as well as Sam Laporta. So you can see here, Laporta put up 25 in this league, where it was only like 16 or 17 in other leagues. But yeah, obviously T. Higgins showed up for him, blew out the competition by 90 in this one. So he didn't even need T. Higgins or Zach Ertz, and he would have won this one. So congrats to Frosties in the first year of our Extreme Redraft. Really fun league to be a part of. Looking forward to that one going forward. Next up, we have Tig's Bits. Yes. Before the season started, I had the pleasure of joining Tig's Bits show down in Louisiana from some LSU Tigers fans and Brantley, and got to know them through my co-host Matt English. We should see tomorrow in an episode that we'll put out. Get that done in the morning, get it out to you at some point during the day tomorrow. But this league was totally fun, a listener league that we threw together just from, really it drew interest just from, we brought it up when I was on the show, and we just said, hey, a couple of listeners were like, hey, I want to be in a fantasy league. So we threw one together, and voila. And the winner of this one was my ball Zach Ertz. That's right. Jason Hilton here blew out Team LAF. And let's see here. He had Lamar, Saquon. So no surprise he made it to the championship with that combo. Jefferson, Jalen McMillan got in the end zone. Trey McBride dropped 40. So well deserved championship. He also added JMO there. As you can see, this one was a super flex start. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9. You can subtract the kickers and defenses. So yeah, you can see this was another Lamar Saquon championship team. The opponent here had Jaden Daniels and Chase Brown, who were not slouches in their own right this season, but just not quite enough. As Chase Brown disappointed a little in championship week. Couldn't quite get it together for the title there for LF. All right. Moving along, though, to the next league. So congrats to Jason Hilton. Looking forward to doing another Tixbits episode and league next year. All right, now my guillotine league that I was part of. Now, this is the first time I had done a guillotine league. Now, let me tell you, if you haven't done a guillotine league, try and get in one this year because this was wild. All right, you enjoy Fab. Oh, this is the league for you. So, way the guillotine league set up is this league there was 14 teams, and each week you eliminate the lowest scoring team, and you not only eliminate them, but all of their players get dropped into the free agency pool, and then we bid on. So yes, first round picks, second round picks, third round, they're all in the pool, and you bid on them. So this leads to massive. We all started out with $1,000 at Fab, right? And there were guys that went for over $500 in certain weeks. You could trade Fab, so you could trade, and that was all part of the game too. Like you trade middling wide receivers for 75 Fab here and there. You could trade a top end quarterback for 200 to 300. It's pretty wild, and the market just changes weekly with these players. It's insane, I'm telling you. So, team that ended up winning this one here, let me see. It would be trying to, oh yeah, we got to go back a few weeks here. Week 12. Trying to remember who actually won this one. See, what happens is the last 2 weeks, it's accumulation. 3 teams are in it. Just trying to see what the actual. There it is. It's Go Cubs Go. That's who won it. All right. So the real bro techno. Here we go. There's his roster. Now it's pretty stacked, as you can see. So we had Lamar, who I actually had on I drafted Lamar. Josh Jacobs, Bijan, T. Higgins, no surprise. You got Josh Allen down there hiding as well. So this was a super flex league. Just wild stuff. I mean, I'm telling you, get involved in a guillotine league. It was super fun. Sorry, I didn't bring up the page here. Here we go. Here's its squad. If I go back to gotta go back to week 12 here so I can show you this guy's team. There it is. Okay. So you had Lamar, Josh Jacobs, Bijan, T. Higgins, his big contributors, Trey McBride, and then Josh Allen's down there too on his squad. So again, those lineups were changing weekly. If you weren't paying attention any given day, you'd miss out on some wildness. And so this is by far the most trades I've ever seen in any kind of redraft league. Super fun. I highly recommend trying to get involved in a guillotine league next year. Next up is my Lemmy's Dynasty League, and this is the one I talked about earlier, where I was easily the top team during the regular season, 2,500 points, with the next highest guy with like 2,100. But that's there you can go. There you can see it. Sorry, I was at 2678. Next highest was 2383. So it wasn't still 300 point difference is a lot. I mean, that's like 20 points a week that I was outscoring the next best team by. But when it comes to the playoffs, it's just 1 week, and I lost in the semifinals, and then I lost in the well, actually I did take third. Okay. So I took third. But it's still a disappointment considering that I had done so well during the regular season. Now the champ in this one was Steve, who won the 31-43 league. He won Lemmy's here as well. This was just his second year in the league. He took over an orphan and has done quite well, obviously. Drafted Jaden Daniels this year. Ramondre did jack shit for him in the championship, but that didn't matter because Bucky showed up. So you can see there Ramondre and Bucky Irving as the starting running backs, Justin Jefferson, Mike Evans, uh, Sam Darnold down near the bottom there. So obviously, he only went 8-6 during the season. Again, both the Steve's teams that won it weren't teams that were favored to win it. But you get enough teams in the playoffs, and by variance, you are going to end up having some success with some of them, because the one seeds don't win every game, and this in the semifinals, the one seeds lose all the time, right? How many times do you see a team go 13-1 and not make the championship? Happens all the time because it's just 1 week, and it's 1 week against a good team. So it happens. And Steve took advantage of that variance and pulled it out, beating a team that just didn't show up against him in the championship. I mean, look at the guy he played against. He had Jonathan Taylor, but Seahawks defense was the second highest scoring player. So, I mean, congrats to Steve in that league. Good luck defending your title, because I am going to take it next year. That's right. Coming back with a vengeance in Lemmy's. I still got plenty of draft picks there. Okay. Next up, we got my League of Champions League. This one won. I won 2 out of the first 3 years. Now my team's starting to get old. This league has an odd twist in that all catches are worth 2 points. Doesn't matter the position. No tight end premium, no running back premium, nothing. But all catches are worth 2 points. Now it is super flex, but with the 2 point catch thing, wide receivers are just massive in this league. And so I have never had top end quarterbacks, but I've had good wide receivers in this league. Now I finished 7th this year, but you can see there I was 6-8. I mean, I still had a chance at the playoffs going into the last week of the season. But I was sort of caught in the middle. I wasn't doing terrible at the beginning of the year. It didn't feel like I had a lot of injuries with this team too. Dak, I know. CD got hurt. I'm sitting on Bijan. You know, I it didn't feel like it was a team that I just started. There's Bo Nix I've got. So I have Justin Herbert and Dak, had Watson. So I'm pretty well loaded. You can see McConkey there. So Yes, I have a mix here of old talent, but there's some work to be done this offseason for sure. Now, the winner in this one was Tukter, if I'm not mistaken. Trying to think here. Let's see here. Yes, there we go. But he lost to Ertz. Okay, there we go. Here's the championship. Okay, so Ertz and fourth TDs won this one, and so he has Purdy. And then you can see his wide receivers here: Amon Ra, Kittle at tight end, Addison, Jamo, Goff. All big weeks in the championship for him. Pretty much just had a nice solid week in this league. 238 isn't anything outrageous. I mean, we regularly have guys scoring 275 or more on a weekly basis. So this was a nice tight matchup in the finals. And Ertz and four TDs just squeaked it out by having enough guys get into the 20-point range and pull it out for him. You can see some guys like Juwan Jennings on there. Waited all year to have Pacheco back, and Hertz was out. Kamara was out, so you can see he had a strong team all season long, and so definitely a well deserved championship there for Hertz and four TDs. Um, oh man, sorry, I didn't have that up. Here we go. There's Here's the matchup. I apologize, Ertz. Here we go. All right. Now I'll scroll down. There's his team: Purdy, Kyron, Amon Ra, Kittle, Juwan Jennings, Addison, Jamo. So you got those two guys, Addison and Jamo, showing up in the playoffs. Both very similar profiles in that they're not the top guy on their team, but they are the second guy in a potent offense. And so they produce, when they do produce, they produce high end numbers. Definitely came through for Ertz and four TDs when it mattered most. Next up is the Cannonball League, and this is one that I took down. Um, I was the one seed in this league. I took on I was the two seed by less than a point, as you can see here. Total points, it was literally 0.9 that he earned. Think about this. We play 14 weeks and we both have identical 24-4 records. And the one seed is determined by less than a point. So that's how close I was to the one seed. Now, it didn't matter because we ended up playing each other in the championship. So it was definitely a worthwhile championship here. And this squad I've put together here was coming off of a major rebuild I did last season, and I flipped it right into a championship this year. By the main thing I did was I had five firsts, and I had five firsts going into the 24 draft. I used two of them along with a future first to help acquire Jalen Hurts, and Hurts was the main piece. I already had Mahomes, but Jonathan Taylor, there you can see on the squad, I didn't add him till late in the year. I traded for him in like week 11. I think I gave up a first for him. T. Higgins sitting there, the nice 39 spot for me. Mike Evans producing. Achan and McLaurin not doing so much. And then, of course, Spencer Rattler. Had to make sure I got Spencer Rattler in on there. All right. Now, why don't I show you the. Geez, I keep doing this. All right. Here's the team. Let's go back up to the top. There we go. So I won it by about 50. So it wasn't as close as the regular season had been, but you can see there he forgot to auto sub Tua, but he didn't really have anybody to put in anyway because I was quicker to the waiver wire and picked up Tyler Huntley once Tua's absence for the week was announced. So that was on him for not being prepared for that possibility. But regardless, still pulled it out. And I would have won either way had he picked up Huntley and played him anyway. I mean, you had 26 points, he'd be at 168. So it still would have won by 23. But yeah, this was a rebuild that turned into gold. Trying to look for Hurts here. I had Darnell Mooney on this team, helped carry me during the season. Jacoby Myers. I got Jalen Waddle sitting down there. Looking forward to next year. Hopefully, a better season next year. But yeah, Hurts was the big move that I made this off season, and definitely paid off there. But just so you're aware, there was other moves. Mike Evans for a second rounder in the off season. Terry McLaurin at some point I acquired for yes. So that's what happened. It's funny because Chris Godwin has been traded about 7 or 8 times in this league. I think I've owned him 4 times in this league. But yes, I had traded for Chris Godwin right before week 1, and then when Godwin got hurt, I flipped him for Terry McLaurin. So yeah, I basically was getting the same kind of production out of the low end veteran that's scoring points. Yeah, that profile. That's very important to identify as early as possible. If you see a veteran wide receiver that's showing that he's going to be the guy, like we go into next year and Cooper Kupp again, right? Cooper Kupp's somebody who comes to mind because his stock is obviously plummeted right now because he's pissed everybody off who owns him and pretty much scared everybody else away too. But there's no reason that Cooper Kupp, who still has it in him, just like Keenan Allen, he was producing late this year. You can see DJ Moore going into that realm next year. But there's every year there's this set of veteran wide receivers that are in their 30s or nearing their 30s, and they produce for you. And when it's in season, production is the key. And don't be afraid to trade that. If it's just a second isn't going to get it done. Trust me, throwing in that 3rd or 4th rounder isn't going to kill you when it means that it can bring you a title. All right. Next up, we've got the 16-team Superflex. This is a grueling league. I took 3rd in this league. I was 9-5 during the regular season. Lost to the semifinals. And the team that won it here was Brandon. Of course, has Jamar Chase with chasing that W now. He has CJ Stroud, who he isn't too happy about most of the year. But again, this is a 16-team Superflex, so quarterbacks are at an extreme premium. Bo Nix, you can see, definitely stepped it up for him His opponent, I don't know what the deal was with. Well, again, he didn't have Flacco, so he couldn't put anybody in for A Rich. But anyway, uh, Brandon's team is very solid with these four guys right here. Bring this up for you. There we go. 16 team Superflex. Brandon over on the right side of the screen. There's Stroud, but after that, Gibbs and Taylor in the backfield, then Chase, Garrett Wilson, Brock Bowers, and then Bo Nix down here. So you can see he had Bowers, McMillan, and Bo Nix, all rookies, producing for him in the championship matchup. Now I'm just curious where he drafted Bowers, because Bowers was somebody who was sort of falling in drafts, I want to say, late in the draft process. Got him with the 108, which is, basically where he was going in most leagues. And Bo Nix, he got. Where did he pick Nix? Back to back there, got him with the 109. So, yeah. But this team obviously built on the backbone of the backfield with Gibbs and Taylor, and then Chase, G-Dub, and wide receiver. So well deserved. Brandon winning this tough 16 team Superflex Dynasty. It's a rough one. On to another 16 team league here. Single quarterback, this one is. This one I'm rebuilding. I ended up with a 102. The champ went to Ertz and 4 TDs for the second time. You can see here. Also with Brock Purdy. This one he's got Saquon, Jefferson, Brian Thomas. So you can see there a pretty solid, well-deserving squad. This is a 16 team, but just one quarterback. However, you do get tight end premium in this one. His opponent had Baker and T. Higgins, which is amazing to have Baker and T. Higgins that lose by 20. But when nobody else on your team puts up 10 points and you got some donuts there, that does not help at all. So more power to Ertz and 4 TDs. Tough one there for shaking acids. You had a good season, but Ertz and 4 TDs went 13-1 during the regular season. He's a well-deserved champ in this league. So next up, we got the 2 quarterback, 2 tight end premium league. So this league, you have to start 2 quarterbacks, have to start 2 tight ends. So obviously there's a premium on those positions in this one. This league, I have a pretty solid squad. I was the 2 seed. Lost in the semifinals, though. Then in the finals, the 1 seed, Jalen Schmertz, was able to outlast the Fantasy Reaper by quite a bit, 67 points. You can see there. Jaden Daniels, Saquon, Juwan Jennings, Trey McBride. You can see Chase down there and Garrett Wilson. So well-loaded team. His 2 tight ends here. So he started JD and Russell Wilson at quarterback, and at tight end he had Freiermuth and Trey McBride. So it's a solid tight end room, super important in this league. If you look at my squad, I've been riding Kittle and Kelsey for a few years now in this one. Really wish I would have made the championship because I would have beaten either of them, but I instead didn't make the finals and I took 4th place. Yeah. So that's how luck plays out in the fantasy playoffs for you sometimes. All right. Next up here, we haven't even gotten to my best ball leagues yet. Oh, they're coming up. All right. Deep Dynasty is a single quarterback league. Which seems so boring now, but they still exist out there. And Get to week 17. There we go. Skymov wins this one over Tukter. And yes, he had Jaden Daniels, Jameer Gibbs, Derrick Henry, JMO, Alec Pierce putting up a big performance, Trey McBride, Jalen McMillan, Laporta. And so you can see there's some of the usual suspects. He did defeat Patrick Mahomes, Saquon, Justin Jefferson, and Chase, Drake London. So McLaurin and McConkey. So I mean, Tuchter had quite a hot team rolling in. He was the 1 seed. So I mean, but Skymoff came out on top there. This one, another one quarterback league here, a last man standing, and this one, trying to think, I did not make the postseason. I started trading away a little late in this one, but my team is not terrible. As you can see there, we have 4 teams finish at 7-7. Another team at 8-6. I was in the race for most of the year. But anyway, champ here, Lake Slavic, in many leagues with him. Lake's a solid fantasy mind. Brock Purdy taking him to the title. I actually traded him Purdy just before the playoffs when I knew I was out of it. And but this one is a 2 tight end league, no tight end premium, so it's a little weird. But Lake here just corners the market at tight end. He's got Kincaid, Bowers. Trying to think of who's on his bench down here. He's got Pitts down there, yeah, Isaiah Likely and Okonkwo. So he's just absolutely stacked at the tight end position, hoarding it. Blew him out by 47 points. So Purdy, McConkey, Devonta Smith. Those are the main. That's the first Devonta Smith championship team I've seen. But we'll bring up another one here, and that would be my Birdhouse League and the initial year of the Birdhouse. Thank you all to all who joined the Birdhouse. This is one of my toughest leagues, I will say. And the competition was stiff here. Chris Cash Money all season long was tough. He was the 1 seed. I was the 2 seed. And it was quite the battle. This was best ball, so it's always hard to keep track of where you're exactly sitting in best ball. That's what makes them so much fun, because like Sleeper will input the guys who have scored and then won't show the projection total reflecting some guys on your bench. So you're a little bit under what your real projection is. Anyway, Devonta Smith showed up for me in this one. I got Baker as well. Baker, I actually traded up for in the startup in this one. So huge payoff to Baker. I traded up so I could take him in the 5th round, which was probably a round or 2 earlier than most were taking him. But I had confidence in the guy. Also have Bo Nix on this team. So Bo Nix and Baker's performances all season long, super important in this team's success. Jamar Chase, obviously, as well. Zach Ertz, you can see there, showed up. I had a few injuries in this league. I had Chris Godwin. I had Ayuk as well, I believe. So I was able to trade them to get. I think I traded Godwin and a first for Devonta Smith and a third, something like that. Which at the time seemed a little steep, but when you win the championship, it's all worth it, baby. So that's what I got to say about that. It worked out. Anyway, enough gloating. We'll go to the Birdhouse 2 League, where it didn't pan out for me. And I took, let me think here. I took 4th in this one. I was the 3 seed. But here's the championship matchup. It was Travis Bieski and Brandon in the title game. Lamar, JT, Lad, pretty much the usual suspects as you've seen here with the other championship squads. Brandon, not quite enough with Goff's big game. Uh, didn't have quite the firepower, not quite. As you can see, a couple of 30-point performances pulled it out for Trav. And congratulations to him in the Birdhouse 2 league. Super fun. Both of these Birdhouse leagues. Love Best Ball Dynasty now. Next up, we've got Crash and Smash. Very similar to the other two, except in this one, we added a couple of defensive players on the bottom here. So you can see this league, I also lost in the semifinals. So I ended up getting fourth place. But the champ went to Inadmissible, who took out the commish, Matt English, my co-host, and JT, Brucky Irving, Pat Mahomes, Trey McBride led him to the victory. On the losing side, he also had some monster performances defensively, as you can see a couple guys here getting 26 and 24 points. So little juice defensive scoring here where you get like 6 points for a sack, 6 points for an INT. So yeah, we juiced it up a little for the defensive players to make them somewhat relevant at least, rather than just grabbing whatever defensive players you wanted to. Next up is the Best Ball Mania League, and this one came down to my grandpa's backfield, my team with all its aging veteran running backs. And it was taking on Ace Hawk, who had Joe Burrow and JT. So it was quite the competition here. This one I had all the Ravens and Lamar, Henry. Zay Flowers did not show up, but fortunately I had a couple other guys come out of the woodwork to save me. Tyler Conklin with a big game. Jade McMillan, have Devonta Smith in this one as well. So guys who are coming through all season for me didn't quite make it happen, but that's why it pays to have depth in best ball. And one of the major keys I want to say is when your guys are producing, say it's a veteran like Chris Godwin this year, right? When they're producing for the first 6-7 weeks of the year and you are sitting at 6-1 because of them, and then they go down, you can't just let that go to the wayside. All right. You have to make a move to get rid of that guy right away and try and get somebody producing just as much or close to it right away, because Chris Godwin's value right now today is not as much as it was back in week 7 or 8, right after his injury happened. So what I'm getting at is when it's fresh in people's mind that, hey, this guy's good, but he got hurt, but I can use that next year. So you want to capitalize on that. If I had waited 2-3 weeks to trade Godwin, his value wouldn't have been as high. So that's the point. If you have Brandon Ayuk is another example from this year. Not as good because he wasn't producing as well, but it was still fresh in people's minds last year. Okay. It was early enough. Then you've got, Rashee Rice. Okay. If you had Rashee Rice, he's young, blah, 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 but if he had helped you start out hot and It wasn't like the only reason that you were doing it. If you could see that you had a good squad, Rashee Rice was plenty young enough. You could get a lot for Rashee Rice. Okay. So don't be afraid to trade off that guy that got hurt. That's the key takeaway from that. So just got a couple more to go over. Here we go. Not first year last. This is the best ball with some of my work friends. We've got who ended up in this one? Yes, Foss Boss. There we go. So Foss Boss had Joe Burrow, Bucky Irving. Quite the tandem this year. There's Devonta Smith, Jamar Chase, and Olamide Zaccheaus coming through. Mac Jones as well. All right, so you can see there the Churro Burrow Chase combo making it happen for Foss Boss. Congrats to him pulling that one out. And then finally, bigger is better. And this was so much fun, this league. So this is a 53-man roster. Start 11 offense, start 11 defense. Juiced scoring for defensive players. So juiced, it's 10 points a sack, 10 points an INT, get points for passes, defense, quarterback hits, all sorts of scoring for the defenders. And then on top of it, you add in the fact that if your guy had played, but you wanted to bet that you could outscore it with somebody who was on the bench, like somebody who was playing in the Sunday night game or Monday night game, you could still drop them and pick up somebody. It's a weird quirk in the best ball format. A little risky playing it that way, but in a 53-man roster, if you left the bottom 5 or 6 spots for that, you could churn and burn weekly on the bottom of your roster. So it was quite fun being a participant in this. The law offices of Saxonville had the 1 seed, but couldn't quite pull it off. And Mojo, Silence of the Lambs, took it down. So much fun this league. He had Baker, Mike Evans, that duo, Bo Nix. So, and then just a lot of points from the defensive players there. Cashman had a big game. Spillane, Martin, the defensive back in Washington. So you can see defensive players. Look at our scoring here. Defensive players, tons of guys in the 20s. Okay. And really, you're just looking for 1 sack and then a few tackles. And that's all it took to get into the starting lineup. So it's a lot of fun, this league. Really made you pay attention to both sides of the ball all game. Lots of fun there. And finally, Dynasty Best Ball Superflex, which was my first introduction to Dynasty Best Ball. These guys are a great group. Love playing with them. I won this league last year. This year, took 3rd. I was the 2 seed, but title went to Dale Walters. Made a big deal with him in the offseason. He was really trying to get Breece Hall off me, and I wasn't budging. And then it got to the 106 in the rookie draft, and here was a perfect example of timing. But the 106 came up and Jaden Daniels hadn't been taken yet. And I was like, man, I really want some JD. I hadn't gotten him in any other leagues. And so I traded Breece Hall for the 106 and got Jaden Daniels. And it probably at the time was looked at like a little weird. But right now I'm more than happy that I have Jaden Daniels. But ironically, he had Breece Hall and he's the one that ends up winning it, not me. Most likely because of Baker right there. He also did draft Brian Thomas, Scott Bijan, Zach Ertz, some of the usual suspects here. He also has Josh Allen on that squad. So, yeah, there's Breece Hall. Well, 6.3 points for him in the championship. Oh, it's funny how it happens sometimes. But congrats there to Dale Walters for taking down the Dynasty Ball Superflex League. So thank you all for joining me on this Champions Edition. We're going to do a show with Matt English tomorrow, bringing up what we learned from the 2024 season and what we can look forward to coming in the 2025 season. Some of our favorite values going into the offseason to start the offseason, who some of our favorite values are right now to try and go out and acquire. That's what we'll be looking at tomorrow. Any questions, as always, drop me a few bucks on buymeacoffee.com/Birdhouse Dynasty Show. You can check out my rankings on patreon.com/Birdhouse Dynasty Show. Sure to check out the rookie rankings because, hey, college football playoffs going on right now. So be watching. Anyway, thanks again for joining tonight. Love you all. Have a great night.